בוקר טוב חברים, השעה 10 בבוקר ברדמונד והגיע הזמן ל.NET API Review. And that is my attempt at Hebrew. Happy belated Rosh Hashanah. Alright, first up, add tokenizer APIs for V2. This is .NET Machine Learning 7512. Tarek, sabah al-khair.
صباح النور. Yeah, thank you, Jeremy. Yeah, this proposal is for a few APIs that we adding for current release for the tokenizers library. It's kind of addition to what we have today. I mean, like it's not introducing a new tokenizer or anything, but introducing a new extra functionality for the existing tokenizers. So the first one here is related to the PBE tokenizer, which is we already have. If you can scroll a little bit up, Jeremy, just so if you see, like today we have this create method, which is PBE tokenizer create method, which is taking a bunch of parameters here. This is already existing today, and we need to add extra things that we can initialize the tokenizer with. And as you see, like, you know, it became ugly if we need to add to or to have another overload for create. I mean, passing all of these parameters. We already established some pattern with other tokenizers like BERT tokenizer today, that we introduce like BERT options, which is objects that you can initialize and pass it to the create methods to create the tokenizer itself. So the idea here is doing the same with the PBE tokenizer here, is to create PBE options, which is almost like mapping all these parameters that we had already in the create method and adding a couple of extra things there. I mean, so if you go to a little bit down for PBE options, you will see like it's almost matching the parameters that we have with two extra things, which is like byte level, the last one here, and the one which is it's called beginning. Let me remember the name here. Yeah, that's one, beginning of the sentence token. Those are two things that we adding here. Beginning of sentence token is just like to decide about like if when you do encoding for any text through this tokenizer, it always insert a specific token in the beginning of the encoding. This is of course optional. I mean, like, you know, it's up to the caller to decide to insert that or not. This is why it's nullable string. I mean, like if it's null, so it's ignored. If it's passed, so we honor that and we produce it in our encoding. The second one is the byte level, which is we adding here, and this is actually telling the tokenizer that it has to treat that vocabularies, the best vocabularies, as bytes instead of characters. Mostly it's kind of like encoded in UTF-8. And of course, about like, you know, if you're doing anything on an operation through the tokenizer using this vocabulary, so you have to do it using bytes instead of characters. Byte level term is actually kind of a standard term in Hugging Face tokenizers that's used there. This is why I'm using exactly the same name here. One extra note also I want to mention here is we are passing the vocabulary to the options here as enumerable, and this is because like we need to give flexibility for users that to read the vocabularies from any source and passing to us, so we don't have to restrict it to some specific format like JSON or something like this. This is why I mean, like, this is the only difference between the create and the PP options, because create was taking the path to the vocab file, which is we require to have a JSON file. But with the BB options, I mean, we are taking IEnumerable, so users can pass whatever, I mean, like just IEnumerable from string to int, which is mapping the vocabulary to the IDs, and is not restricted to any format. So it's up to the user to read the vocab with any format and passing to us IEnumerable for it. Yeah. Uh, this is mostly what we have here. Of course, I mean, like, after introducing the byte level and beginning of sentence token, we are adding also extra two properties inside the BPE tokenizer for those extra things, the byte level and beginning of sentence token. Yeah, this is mostly the first part here. Any questions so far about those?
Well, the first one is
Mhm.
if users are already calling this and they're passing a path to a file, do they have an easy get the contents out of the file to use your new options? Or are you gonna go make them write an entire file loader?
Yeah, so BBA tokenizer exposes the vocab property, and this vocab property is kind of dictionary that say we can pass it. I mean, like if somebody create BBE tokenizer with the create method today and passing JSON file, so we read the JSON file and we cache it as a dictionary. I mean, from string to int, and we expose this to the user, so users can get this data. Yeah.
So if somebody wants to continue loading a file that they're already working with and not write a loader, they have to call
Mhm.
BPE tokenizer create and then pass the tokenizer or the vocab and merges properties
No,
into new BPE
they
options.
they can open the file as JSON file themselves.
Uh
I
huh.
mean,
And then have to
and
read it.
yeah,
So there's no.
deserialize it. I mean, deserialize it to the dictionary and pass it to us.
Is it just a dictionary?
Yeah, it's a dictionary. Yeah.
Okay, no structure.
No, it's just like, yeah, I mean, like string to IDs.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So it's
Does the
easy.
oh, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. Does the vocabulary constructor parameter to the options populate like anything other than the vocabulary property?
No, it's just
No.
vocabulary. Yeah, yeah.
Right. Makes sense. Any reason not to make vocabulary settable as well, just for convenience, since everything else is. I get why it needs to be a constructor parameter since it's not nullable,
Well,
but
once it's a constructor parameter, it shouldn't be settable.
all right. But everything else is settable. But yeah,
Everything else was optional.
fair enough.
Yeah.
Um, so we have as a guideline basically don't use value tuple, but you're using value tuple. And you also said you can pass if you called BPE tokenizer, you could pass the vocab into this constructor, but you can't because it's a dictionary which is not IEnumerable of value tuple. It's an IEnumerable of key value pair. So did you mean key value pair?
Uh, yeah, I mean, like we can make it key value pair. I mean, it's yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think my loader question would be like, should BPE options
Mhm.
have a constructor overload that takes the vocab and merges file parameters so you can just
Yeah,
switch one syntax to the other?
this would be a good idea. I mean, like because like most of the scenarios that users need to have both vocabulary and merges, but not in all scenarios. But most of the scenario, I mean, the mainstream scenarios need both the vocabulary and merges. That's right. Or we can have just one constructor taking optional parameter for merges.
Yeah, I was thinking
Yeah,
because here you have it's a required parameter that you could pass null, but I was thinking defaulted.
yeah.
I guess it depends just on how uncommon a merges file is. I don't know. It sounds like it's not very common at all.
It's
Or
common.
sorry, not common to omit. Sorry.
It's a common, I mean, to have the merges, but not required in every single scenario. But it's common to have it, yes.
Okay. I'm not a huge fan of the property name byte level, but I don't have a better answer.
This is, as I mentioned, but this is a known, well-defined term with
Sure, and I'll state again, I don't care. The
Okay.
the answer is what will somebody walking up to this library look for? Not what does somebody who already knows how to use it in Python. I don't really care about people who come from Python. They can look at a doc that says how to translate from one to the other. Our naming guidelines are designed around people who approach an API for the first time. So byte level is descriptive. It's just not very friendly or informative, which is why I don't like it. But so I'm just throwing it out there to see if anybody else has a better name.
I opened LLM course on Hugging Face just to figure out what BP is, and it's using Python, but it's also using byte level in like English prose. So I don't know. It seems okay to me.
Fair enough. Like the name some other language or library gives a thing is a useful starting place, but it's not a justification for keeping a bad name. I guess that's a better way of saying what I was thinking.
Yeah, I think it's less that's what Python calls it, and more that's what people talking about BPE call it.
Fair enough, but it feels like it's missing a like byte level what? Like maybe it's byte level tokenization, and then maybe tokenization is implicit, but we have fuse unknown tokens. We don't say fuse unknown, and
it's like a byte level encoding. I think it's supposed to describe the byte pair encoding.
I think really it feels like it's missing a third word in that property name.
I'm fine if you want to add something to it. I mean, like, I'm just like, don't like the word encoding because the word encoding used with the tokenizer in general to generate IDs for it. I mean, so I would be hesitant to add encoding. It may add confusion. But if you have if you have any different suggestion, I mean, I'm fine.
I mean, I don't know enough about the domain to know if it's encoding, parsing, tokenizing.
As I mentioned about like the data for vocabulary will be provided as bytes instead of characters. And any handling inside the tokenizer has to assume that. I mean, like it's working with bytes.
Can you explain the difference?
Okay, so imagine like, the regular vocabularies can be provided as strings, regular strings, which is, we read it as UTF-16. So at that time, about like, the vocabs has to include every single term, I mean, inside the vocab that the tokenizer can understand. Instead here about like, providing bytes, I mean, so it can provide bytes that it's converted from UTF-8, but it doesn't have to be a complete UTF-8 terms that that the tokenizer can use about like, if you have like part of it, I mean, like, yeah, you can map it to this ID and it will work. So it's kind of like more flexibility to cover more vocabularies without adding this vocabulary terms. I'm not sure if this is clear or the
I mean, that sounds more like it's doing prefix matching, which doesn't sound like it's caring about, because saying bytes versus characters sounds to me like, don't look at it as UTF-16 pairs of bytes. Look at it byte by byte and pretend it's ASCII. Like the part where you care that it's
right,
looking at this string, which is a string because you passed it here. It's a string. This is not about
right,
reading from a file. You gave a UTF-16 encoded value,
right. Because
and
like
so now
inside,
why do we care about the bytes?
right, because the string passed to us is passed as kind of like byte ASCIIs, but it doesn't mean like this is the ASCII. So we read every character inside the passed string to the vocabulary as a byte at that time, treating every character inside this string as a byte, not as a character.
So you're truncating it down to the BMP?
Yeah. I
I
mean,
don't
like
think there's any
not
truncation. It's
not
just byte
truncation.
by byte. You're like relying on, yeah.
Yeah.
I dropped something in chat if you hadn't read it. I don't know. I don't want to repeat it because I'm not sure I understand it all correctly, but it might be enlightening. Um,
So imagine like you have like a surrogate. I mean, like which is encoded in UTF-8 as 4 bytes, right? It's just one character, but it's encoded in 4 bytes. So these 4 bytes will be passed here to the vocabulary as 4 characters inside this string. So we read every character inside the string as 1 byte of this encoding. So
it seems like oh, sorry.
yeah, go ahead.
It seems like the decoding happens above the tokenizer layer if you do BPs. Like the idea is like you feed it byte by byte, but it's assuming that like the LLM or whatever is consuming, it's going to be able to interpret the Unicode characters regardless.
Okay. And then the quote that Stefan pasted doesn't say it's called byte level. It says it's called byte level BPE, which makes me wonder if BPE should be glued on the end. Of course, then you could say that's redundant with it being BPE options, but
But this
I would
is
say
already
that.
the tokenizer is called BPE tokenizer. I mean, we
yeah,
know
fair
that
enough.
this is inside this context. Yeah.
Fair enough. All right. I still don't get it, but I don't think I will get it unless you're telling me that that you should interpret it as a packed string, and it's not really UTF-16. It's UTF-8 data lying and shoving itself in string
Right.
to be
I
half
mean,
the space.
it's
But
UTF-8 represented inside the string. It's not converted to the UTF-16.
it is UTF-16. It's in memory.
Right. Yeah. Because like most of the people just use whatever, I mean, like JSON, whatever, I mean, or any other like text library which is reading it as a string in C#, is not reading it as bytes from the text file or from the JSON file or whatever.
Right, but you've already read it. Unless it's not about the vocabulary, it's about whatever you're going to read next. Anyway, you say it's fine. Nobody else has a better name. Chat points out that here you say fuse unknown tokens is a boolean that defaults to false, but here you say it's a nullable boolean, which presumably defaults to null. Did you mean these booleans to be nullable, or did you mean them to be false?
No, maybe. Okay, for byte level, yeah. Sorry, this shouldn't be nullable. Yeah, this is a mistake I have.
Okay. So both nullable booleans should just be booleans.
Yes. And should be defaulted to false, yes.
Not to harp on the byte level thing too much, but I'm curious, like, just to follow up with your questions, Jeremy. Like, I know you can basically store arbitrary bytes and strings, and I assume that when you're doing byte level encoding, that it's assuming that these Unicode characters are UTF-8 encoded. Is that an assumption?
I mean,
Okay.
if you have a .NET string, it is UTF-16, unless you're just
Well,
using the
I'll tell
string
you some
type
type.
and you've packed some data in
Right.
it. And if you print the
Yeah.
toString, it'll be gibberish because what you've really done is pack ASCII in and collapsed all the zeros down into
Right. Or Latin
0 bytes.
1 or whatever you decided to put in there. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I was just wondering if it was something like that or if it's actually like a valid UTF-16 string in the vocabularies, like in the byte level mode, of course.
Okay, so if the byte level is turned on, so
Yeah.
the vocab all are encoded as as bytes. Meaning like, all characters there, it's under the 256.
Are they encoded
Ordinate byte.
from like UTF-16 to UTF-8 like internally when
Yeah,
or is
it's
it
kind
like
of like
yeah.
this, yes. But if byte level is not turned on, so the vocabs inside this vocabulary files will be a UTF-16. So you can add like Chinese characters or any other language characters just fine there.
Well, so it's not about so it's not UTF-8, it's ASCII. If you set byte level to true, you're promising that all of these strings are ASCII 7, maybe ASCII 8.
That doesn't seem to be what like byte level BP refers to. Like it seems like that does support Unicode in general.
Yeah, but it's the ASCII is from 0 to 127, right?
Or
This is
0
not
to
the
255, depending on if you're doing ASCII 7 or ASCII 8.
Okay, so yeah, but this is UTF-8 in general like this. I mean, it's just bytes, right?
But I mean, UTF-16 is also just bytes.
Right. No, any
No,
encoding's just bytes.
no,
But that's
UTF-16 is words, not bytes.
Because
It's 2 bytes together. You cannot have bytes.
Sure, 2 bytes together is, it turns out, just bytes. Because the snippet that Stefan pasted said, this way the base vocabulary has a small size, 256. But that means that you have to be throwing out data beyond 256.
That's not what it's saying, because otherwise because it follows up, but every character you can think of will still be included and end up being converted, or not end up being converted to the unknown token. So it implies all the data is still there.
Okay.
Yeah.
This feels like, and I don't understand why there's an option, because if it's the right thing to do, it should just do it automatically, and if it's not the right thing to do, it shouldn't be an option. So, but whatever.
It seems like it's a feature of some tokenizers and not others, so that do this.
Special tokens. Okay, so just the nullables are just all over the place.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, vocabulary is not null because it was required property. Byte level infuse unknown tokens are not null because they're structs. Everything else is nullable. Okay.
Sounds good.
All right. Anybody have anything else on it?
Okay, next part is related to what we call it SentencePiece tokenizer. And this SentencePiece tokenizer is a tokenizer that depend on some specific file formatted, I mean, encoded with a protobuf. This is a Google way, I mean, like to handle that. And in previous version of the tokenizer, we supported some tokenizers called Llama tokenizer to support Llama model. And Llama model was based on the SentencePiece tokenizer. This is why, I mean, like we had like Llama tokenizer.create, this is exist today. But actually Llama tokenizer is actually based on the sentence tokenizer, SentencePiece tokenizer. In this version, we supported more stuff inside SentencePiece. So SentencePiece is kind of more umbrella that it can handle more than one model, tokenizer models inside it. Like, it can handle like BBE itself. It can handle Unigram and some other stuff. And all of this are encoded inside this protobuf file. I mean that, which is you can create the tokenizer with. So when we read this protobuf, I mean deserialize it, and we figure out which model is encoded for this file, and according to that we handle this model internally. All of that internally inside the SentencePiece. So far, I mean, like, we had it any way that you can create a SentencePiece tokenizer itself. We had just one special case for Llama tokenizer, which is we expose it as Llama tokenizer.create. But for SentencePiece, we didn't have any like create methods that you can create the SentencePiece tokenizer itself. So this proposal is just to add this create method for SentencePiece tokenizer to allow creating this SentencePiece tokenizer directly. And all parameters is exactly the same as we had for Llama tokenizer, because it's same, I mean, like at the end, it's same tokenizer, I mean. As I mentioned about, like, the model stream, this is actually a protobuf file stream that we receive and decode it, deserialize it, I mean, like, and handling it.
Okay. Well, the property on SentencePiece tokenizer is not called add begin of sentence, it's add beginning of sentence. So I think the parameter name should match the property even if it doesn't match Llama.
Okay.
Clearly, it means we renamed the property during API review and the parameter got missed.
Okay.
And then you have another nullability error, but I fixed that.
Yeah.
Then clearly it should be add ending of sentence. I'm just kidding. I don't actually think that.
Yeah, well, I think that they're just leaving the word token off. But the properties are add beginning and add end.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Part 3.
Last part here is in the tokenizer library, we have something called the pre-tokenizer, and this pre-tokenizer is responsible to split the input text into smaller chunk before encoding it. And most of the time, I mean, like pre-tokenizer using just regex pattern to do that. And we got a scenario. This is in DeepSeek, I mean, model, that they require multiple pre-tokenizer to be processing the text before encoding it. For example, about like, if you're passing along text, it requires to split first the like digits, I mean, from 0 to 7, for example. I don't know why, but this is, and after that, the remaining of the text can be split in different way with other regex pattern. So basically about like, it needs to to have like multiple pre-tokenizer to processing the text before going and encoding it. And this proposal is just like, proposing to have another pre-tokenizer, which is, we call it composite pre-tokenizer. And this pre-tokenizer will take a list of another pre-tokenizers to use to process the text. The something that I want to mention also here, the order of this pre-tokenizer is very important. About like, you have to apply the first pre-tokenizer first, and after that you can process and proceed with the second one and third one and so on. And of course, I mean, like, this composite pre-tokenizer is just implementing pre-tokenizer abstractions, which is its market here has like pre-tokenize method. Yeah.
And I assume special tokens runs before the first pre-tokenizer?
Yes, special tokens always runs, I mean, before processing anything. Yeah. Yeah.
And is that actually needed here versus just putting some other tokenizer in the list, or is this needed because it's the interface from string to int in the first place?
Yeah, it's just like, for convenience. I mean, most of the time people, I mean, like, they don't have to create their own pre-tokenizer for special tokens and make sure that they are getting it correctly. I mean, like, so we are providing it so we can do it for them. But yes, I mean, like, if somebody need to pass it as part of the pre-tokenizers, they can do that. Yeah. The other thing also, like special tokens is usually get passed while creating the tokenizer itself. So the tokenizer object, and we pass these special tokens to the pre-tokenizers just to handle it. So it's kind of like, input that we can give to the pre-tokenizer ourselves while the tokenizer get created with these special tokens.
Okay. Just, this is designed to be an adapter / glue, and you're adding a feature onto it. So I'm just making sure that you think that the feature makes sense here versus that somebody else should just instantiate another thing and pass it in as the first element. If you think it makes sense, it makes sense. Just the more features you add to a thing, the more complicated it gets.
I think it makes sense to have it, yes.
And is it common that special tokens aren't shared back out? Or would the pre-tokenizer base class already have it as a property? Or you have two constructor parameters. One of them I see exposed as a property. That's really the question. As is fine. I'm just.
Yeah.
It looks weird, so I'm asking a question.
Yeah.
And I go ahead and put the question mark on special tokens because you can't default it to null without a question mark.
The one thing I want to check also, does composite pre-tokenizer is good enough name? I mean, for that, or because like one thing I mentioned about like the order that of the list of the pre-tokenizer passed to the constructor here is very important also.
I feel like we use the same word in the ASP.NET pipelining and HTTP client pipelining and a bunch of other places, and they always mean order matters. Am I wrong, Steven?
Sorry, what word implies order matters, or what thing?
Don't we use composite in a bunch of places to mean chain these things together, and it always means order matters?
I don't know if we actually say anywhere that order matters. I mean, certainly it can matter.
Because like the HTTP things, if you Like the first one to throw a forbidden wins. The things after it don't get to run.
Right, but we call those delegating when they go from one to the other. Like when they're
Delegating.
wrapped up.
Yeah, because like I'm immediately brought to like composite endpoint data source, where usually if there's a conflict, there's a conflict. Like if you have two things for the same URL or route,
So-
you can specify an order, but that's unusual, and it's not based on the order of the data source. It's
So
just
should this
based on
be-
like metadata
Delegating pre-tokenizer?
because order matters.
Well, and it's the if that's the word we're using every time.
So usually with our delegating types, the pattern is basically you're deriving from something that has virtual and or abstract methods. You override all of them to redirect to a wrapped instance. It's the decorator pattern encapsulated in a type called delegating foobar. That doesn't seem to be exactly what this is. But I'd be a little concerned about using that terminology
Okay.
here.
Because I feel like this is a thing that we've come up with a lot. Like a bunch of extensions things have a I need a evaluator function, and then people are like, but I have two evaluator functions, give me both, and then we make the evaluator function list. But
In many cases, we've used a sort of domain specific term. Like when we do this with text writer, we call it broadcasting text writer or something like that.
okay.
An analog composite file provider is pretty similar. It has an order in case like multiple file providers provide the same path, and we call it composite. Usually doesn't come up, right? Like that's the idea is they have disjoint paths or whatever, but if they do,
Yeah.
overlap.
I think sometimes we call it aggregated, sometimes we call it composite. Yeah.
Yeah,
These-
I like composite more than aggregated a little bit.
These are chained together, like the output from one is the input to the next.
Yes.
Is it though? Because you call pre-tokenize, you give it text, and you get back ints. So that can't be
Yeah.
passed into the next call to pre-tokenize. But they could be concatenated in order.
No. I mean, like this is the end result. I mean that you are seeing here, and I mean this is the range that it returned. So as I mentioned, but any pre-tokenizer is just splitting the text into chunks, right? I mean, so and at the end, I mean, like the output of this pre-tokenizer is just giving you these ranges. I mean, like this is the first range, this second range, and so on. So in this composite pre-tokenizer will do the same internally. I mean, like it has a list of another pre-tokenizers that it does this, like execute the first, get the first chunk, and execute the second, get sub chunk for the first chunk, and so on, till it finish all pre-tokenizer, and at the end it produce just the range, end range about like from here to here is the first range for this pre-tokenization.
Wait, so are you thinking of this like? Tell me if my mental model's way off, but are you like tokenizing like paragraph, then sentence, then word, then like syllable or something like that? Is it levels? The way you describe it, yeah, kind of sounds like that.
Yeah, I mean, like,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, like, if you have like sentence, any sentence about like, you know, and it has like, for example, about it has some digits inside it, and the first tokenizer is just first tokenizer inside this list is telling like, okay, I need to chunk the digits alone before applying the other pre-tokenizers to the rest of the text. So this means that like it will chunk the first part of the text up to these digits and split these digits and split the rest after these digits. And it takes the first part that before the digits, and it starts applying the next pre-tokenizer on this one. So which is can split it more into more smaller chunk. And I mean, like, continue doing that till it finish all of them, and it will take the results about, like, you know, this is the smallest chunk from the beginning, this is second one, and so on.
So the later pre-tokenizers can't have chunks that cross the previous pre-tokenizer's boundaries, is what it sounds like. It has to be like within the boundaries of the chunks created by the pre-tokenizer before it.
That's right. Yes. Yeah.
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 Could almost call it a pipeline. I don't know. It's probably overused.
I mean, pipeline does suggest order. So pre-tokenizer pipeline? Pipeline pre-tokenizer? Pre-pipeline tokenizer?
No, I wouldn't split pre-tokenizers.
Yeah, me either. That was a test of is anyone listening.
And also, I think whatever name we come up with here, it has to be ended with the pre-tokenizer, because this is really a pre-tokenizer. So either we keep composite pre-tokenizer, or we can have like pipeline pre-tokenizer. Both are okay for me. Honestly, I mean, like, I'm still preferring composite, but but pipeline is also makes sense to me.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have any problem with composite. I'm just if we already have a word that would apply in the situation, we should use that word instead of inventing a new one. But most of the things that I see glancing around with the word pipeline have pipeline as the end, and I think they're representing themselves, the list, instead of the notion that they are one of the thing that they pipeline just as the chain. We do have
like
other places
is
have
super
chain,
overloaded too.
but
yeah.
But I don't. It feels like it would be more like a chained pre-tokenizer instead of a chain pre-tokenizer. Because most of our collection-y words are suffixes because we're being the list, and this is the list as the thing, which I thought we actually did as a common thing. I just can't think of any. Or rather, the ones I thought of were delegating and not chaining.
I think a composite's fine. Like, it's kind of vague. It doesn't tell you whether there's an order or not, but that's can be addressed in doc comments.
Yep, and the only word we haven't said out loud that chat's thrown in is pipelining. Which...
Pipelining's so overloaded, though. Like, kind of what I was saying is, like, you know, it can mean batching in some contexts, and like, I don't know.
In fact, pipelining I only see in web request handler allow pipelining.
Which is exactly that.
NSURL session configuration should use pipelining, and service point supports pipelining. So,
yeah,
3 things all related to HTTP, none of which use the same prefix.
So, right, in the batching sense, and not in the like order really matters sense. Which, yeah.
All right. Sounds like composite wins. All right. Steve, I think you created the linked cancellation token source. How do you feel about linked tokenizer? That's a sound.
I'd prefer chained over linked, I think.
I also prefer
really wanted to be
chained.
more specific.
Well, somebody referenced linked cancellation token source.
Yeah, there's a difference I'm going to have trouble describing, but this is really a chain, it's a pipeline, it's like data is flowing through it. So I think chaining is more logical here, whereas with cancellation token source, it's more of a I don't know. It's like the value. I don't know. I have something in my head and I can't describe it. I think we probably could have used chained for cancellation token source as well. Linked feels wrong here. This linked to me sort of says like you're establishing a connection, but you're not necessarily saying anything about how data flows. And that's with cancellation, that's kind of what's happening. Like there's a connection, and so it's kind of being alerted when the other thing is alerted.
Yep.
Whereas here, there is sort of this pipeline of information that's propagating.
I agree. Link implies like an event of some sort being linked together, I think more, which is basically what you said.
You said it with many fewer words.
Yeah.
But I think chained, I'm fine with that over composite.
Yeah, I mean, is this so? When I look up chained, the first hit that I'm getting is chained configuration source from ME configuration.
That aligns up ish.
I also do not have
There's
a problem
order.
with composite. Like composite makes sense to me.
Yeah, again, this is if we have a better word that we're already using, we should use it, and if we don't, I was about to hit go on composite, and then chat threw up linked, so.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like chain configuration source, or I guess the difference here is it doesn't take like a whole list. You chain it like one link at a time, to use both words. But yeah, conceptually, it's very similar, the final result, to the composite file provider, where it's like if you have different keys, then the order doesn't matter. But if there's a conflict, then it does, which isn't what's going on here. But yeah, chained or composite is fine.
All right. I wrote down that we talked about it a lot. Okay, so adding byte level and beginning of sentence token to BPE tokenizer. We changed this constructor to be key value pair so it was consistent with the current property. Fixed all the nullability things. Added a few extra letters to that guy.
The byte level properties shouldn't be nullable, right? In the above, go. Above.
I fixed it in the one, but not the other. Okay.
Okay.
Did you say we changed the constructor to be key value pair, or we changed the property to be key value pair?
We changed the constructor to be key value pair because the property already is.
Okay, and because in the what you pasted there, it's got a tuple for the property.
Oh, okay.
Where? The IEnumerable open paren string comma int close paren vocabulary, right where your cursor. Yeah. Which differs from the exact same thing there.
Sorry. Yes, on BPE tokenizer, when you've already built one, it has a vocabulary, which is itself just a dictionary. So so the most consistent one here would be that.
Okay, yeah.
Well,
that's just what confused me, because I heard you say one thing, and then I was reading the code and it said something slightly different there.
I was matching the other property.
Okay.
Will the constructor copy the list or the IEnumerable?
It consuming, because at the end it create like a dictionary which is used to to do fast lookup.
Oh, so it'll come from the dictionary, so effectively a copy. Yeah.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. So I assume this is returning this reference, and that this consumes the data and doesn't hold the reference. So changes after the BPE options constructor are relevant, but changes after the call to create are not.
That's
Okay,
right.
that's the questions.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So create drains the data. Options just holds the data.
Mhm.
And I'm just double checking that I copied vocab and merges file from BPE tokenizer correctly. I guess you had it above, but I'll just make sure that it matches here. Yep, vocab file and merges file. Okay. All right. Anything else?
Yeah, thank you for the feedback.
Have one. See, there are some languages that I know words in.
Excellent.
Boop. All right. Bit manipulation method for bfloat 16 .NET runtime 119874.
Yeah, so we approved bfloat 16, which is a data type that primarily exists for machine learning. It's basically a float that is system not single, but only taking the upper 16 bits. The lower 16 bits are effectively truncated with some minor nuance around rounding. We have a set of APIs that exist for many of the other primitive and numeric types, particularly for floating point on bit converter for getting the underlying raw bits, and then on binary primitives and binary reader writer for working with those types. In the implementation, we particularly have to define and end up using the bit converter ones, whereas the binary primitives and binary reader are being suggested here for completeness more than anything else. As this is a type that has to live in core lib and so has to live at a layer where this functionality can exist. And so the proposal is we flesh out those missing APIs to ensure they exist, as with all the other foundational primitive types that exist, including types like int128 and uint128, which we went and added all of these APIs for when we added those types. I think the biggest nuance is our other primitive types live in the system namespace. bfloat 16 lives in the system numerics namespace. They're all in the same binary. It's just a namespace difference between those.
Okay. I think these two were named wrong. Because I think the reinterpret cast, because it's double to uint 64 bits, not double bits to uint 64. So I think the bits moves to the other 16.
Yeah, that would be correct.
I'm guessing somebody just did a find and replace 16 with 16 bits, and
yeah,
and got surprised that there was an earlier hit. Because that is just reinterpret cast, right?
Yeah, it's the safe way to do reinterpret cast for these types.
Yeah. Okay, and so you only want the reinterpret cast methods here. We don't want to overload all the other overloady things.
Right, because I think the ones on bit converter are otherwise are mostly like older APIs that we don't necessarily recommend for use in many cases. Like get bytes, we typically recommend people use the binary primitives instead. It looks like we did end up adding half an int 128 there though. So
yeah, I mean, it feels like most of the other stuff that's on this type has moved into generic math.
yeah.
Like the try-write bytes, I think the try-writes live on the type themselves now. So
Yeah, I think that's true.
or whatever we called it on the type.
Yeah, so the ones that are really needed are the bit converter, and then the foundational workhorse would be the binary primitives one. The binary reader one is effectively convenience, and if we were to expose bit converter, get bytes, and 2b float 16 and try write bytes, then those would be convenience as well. There's nothing preventing a user from efficiently implementing those with the bit converter and binary primitives provided.
Okay. So personally, the binary primitives feel fine and consistent. And then somewhere as we cross the line into I/O, do we have a sense of when we think we do and don't want to add things to binary reader?
I think the biggest thing that I don't like about it is that it's virtual. It's one of those things that really shouldn't be virtual. At least for something like this. It also looks like binary reader we never exposed. We exposed half, but we didn't expose int 128 and uint 128 there.
Because read b float 16, its really only valid interpretation is read 2 bytes and reinterpret cast, right?
Right. It effectively boils down to an API that, much like read single, will end up getting the raw bits and effectively calling the integer overload. But for .NET Framework 1.0 reasons is virtual, and anyone can override to do basically anything.
Yep, looks like when we added read half, we made it virtual because everything else is virtual. Yeah, so I mean, I guess really the question is, do we think that everything that's a number belongs on here and that we missed 128, or do we think it doesn't matter and we shouldn't bother adding it?
I'm fine with not adding it and waiting for additional user feedback. Like I said, with the other APIs, you can roll this yourself, and if there's not the virtual API on there, you can even roll it more efficiently than what's on the type. So maybe that's a good reason to just not provide it and tell users roll your own, because it's going to be better anyways.
I mean, people who care. So we're talking about the binary reader and writer specifically.
Yeah, I'm just trying to
methods.
see if we understand what our line is when we add new types, of where we should be weaving them in and where we shouldn't. And my gut says the cut line's right about here. So
yeah, I read in the risks that like this loses our opportunity to move the bfloat 16 out of correlate. Is that something we would ever do or consider?
No,
if we
it
didn't
can't
take
be
this?
moved out of corelib anyways, because it's a primitive type. There's hardware acceleration support for it, and so it has to live in corelib because the JIT has to understand it to accelerate it.
All right. Well, I'm fine not adding the binary reader and binary writer stuff, at least now. Could add it later, though I doubt we would.
Okay. But we think the reads, writes, and try writes on binary primitives are good.
Yeah, they follow the existing convention, and that's kind of the most foundational performant way to do that today.
Okay, but again, binary primitives predated the math interfaces and moving things around. Are these, should new code
Right.
really be pulling from binary primitives, or should new code be pulling from bfloat16 dot write thyself little Indian?
The math APIs aren't explicitly read self as big little endian. So for the integers, it is read a 2's complement byte representation of the number, which can be the shortest 2's complement byte representation of the number, and interpret that as the value. So you can provide 1 byte and read that as an int32, and it will just be interpreted as the shortest 2's complement representation. It is not read exactly 4 bytes and get the value back out.
Okay.
The API works that way so that users can use it as a way to do general interchange between 2 types that exist in different layers and therefore can never refer to each other. So, someone has their own custom type A and there's another custom type B. You want them to be able to interchange. You can write B as the shortest 2's complement representation generically and then read it back generically, and have that interchange, so you don't need the dependence.
Fair enough. Oh, and corrected a typo. Okay. Anything else? Other than apparently Frederick now wants minfloat. Right. Add missing overloads to flow system text room through more APIs proposal runtime 120015.
So if no one else wants to do this one, I can. Levi was really the best person to drive this one through, but he's oof.
Yep.
So
I think Tarek, are you the one who marked it as ready?
I can't talk about this one.
Either of you. I was just...
Yeah. So basically we recently added some overloads, in different classes like string to handle rune. With like index of rune and some stuff like that. So this guy, opened this proposal, is the one which is was helping adding this other overloads that we already added last few days. And we discovered there is extra overloads that it makes sense to have, in addition to what we have added. So for example, about if you look at this list, whatever listed here without any comment, at the end, this is what we have today. And what he listed as amendment is what is proposed to add here. So for example, about like, he's saying like, we have overload take character and string comparison, or character and start and count, and so on. But we don't have overloads that it takes character and start index and string comparison, or character start index count string comparison. So the proposal here is to add extra overload for different functionality. I mean, like index of, last index of, and so on, to have like the extra parameters that it makes sense to have. We can go through this. I mean, like the proposal is down there. I mean, like if we can look at the proposal directly. I mean, it would be more clearer. Yeah.
Oh, good. That's better than me trying to rewrite it to look like that.
Yeah. So basically about like, we need to add like index of, which is taking rune and have start index and string comparison. And another one which is taking string index, start index and count.
Sorry, I'm just seeing if this. All right, 2 index of, 2 last index of, 2 more index of, 2 more last index of, and then okay, these are just saying they're already here. So I guess the idea behind this is like the German O umlaut, which can be matched against O followed by E. So
yeah.
So that's where you're saying you want the ordinal versus the culture sensitive.
Right.
Okay.
But we already added this overload. I mean, this proposal is to add like the overloads that it can take, like start index and the count in addition to it.
Oh, I see. So okay, we already had a single character with a customized string comparison, but you couldn't offset it from 0, or you couldn't limit it to the first half. Or okay.
Right. So this proposal is just like adding extra overload to handle the start index and the count.
Okay. And then somehow we also, out of this, get an extra equals method on char?
Yes.
I mean, that feels unrelated to the proposal. We can talk about it at the same time, but it doesn't feel like it's the same proposal.
No, I mean, like the other overload, I mean, like we have another issue. I'm not sure if linked here or not, but the other proposals that we already implemented, like we merged that a few days ago. The other proposal was covering the string and the character and the rune, different types. And for the character struct, I mean, like, we added already overloads there. I don't remember, but but the idea here is to allow about like, as we have overloads that takes rune with the string comparison, so it makes sense to have also similar overload inside the characters that it takes string comparison to. It's kind of related. I mean, like,
ish. The one is we have these 5 blocks and they don't all look the same. 6 blocks, I can count. We have these 6 blocks. Let's make these look like these. And then it's like, oh, and also while we're here, let's add an overload to char.equals.
Yes, because like we added this equals also in the rune. So this would be matching what we added to rune.
Yeah, but with rune, I can understand it. Because rune, I guess you have the same with char as well. This is the weird math face numeral 0, and you want to say that it's equal to, ASCII 0.
No, not only. I mean, like if you want to compare 2 characters with ignore casing, what you will do today. You don't have a good way to do it except like you doing it manually or convert it to string and compare it with ignore casing, for example. So adding this to the character, to the chart struct is kind of helpful for on the level of the character.
I mean, I guess clearly we already think so because we have it as an internal method. Fair enough. I mean,
well, you need it to implement some of the existing overloads that take car, right? That don't take a start index and take like string comparison. So, yeah, I see why they make sense that they're related. I think, yeah, I think it all makes sense.
So a question that's related, which was also on the original 27912 proposal, which we reviewed and approved like 6 years ago and got merged 4 days ago, was do we need overloads for these on memory extensions for span? Because right now, the ones that, for example, take a start index could just be calling the span overload, except for languages that don't support span. And the ones that have like char value count don't have the ability to use those on span, so you can't use them without allocating today. And it looks like there's no notes on what we ever said 6 years ago when we reviewed that.
could you tell me what's missing from the spanny ones? Because the start index and count, if you already have the span one, you wouldn't need that because you would just call slice first. So like this overload doesn't need to exist on the spanny ones.
Oh, maybe my brain's just not working, and I was thinking count. I was thinking, for some reason, my brain was thinking count was the repetition number for value instead of the length of the slice. And I think that's because we normally use length to refer to the length of the slice.
Yeah. I mean, Tarek, please correct me if I'm wrong, but and what I said in chat is I believe that this method is logically equivalent to target dot substring start index comma count close paren dot last index of rune comma comparison type.
That's right. Yes.
So this is a substring operation, but without the substring, and on the span it would be a slice without the slice. But it turns out that's actually not important to distinguish, so we don't need this overload on the span one.
That's right.
Yeah, my brain just not working then.
No, I mean it's good to make sure we're all on the same page.
Yeah. The thing that would be missing then is the we have, for example, index of read-only span of character to read-only span of character string comparison. We don't have index of read-only span of char with a single char string comparison, which is a minor perf optimization, but probably doesn't matter. So I don't think we need to consider it unless someone goes and asks for it.
Right. So when you're looking for the ordinal ignore case, you have to upconvert to a stringy like thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But can't you just create a span from the character and use whatever we have today?
You can, but then but then various things have to presume that it could be more than length 1 and have to handle and account for that fact. So it's more expense.
Yeah, it's the thing where length 1 matching is easier than span matching.
Yeah.
So like I said, now that I understand that we're using count here to mean what we normally say is length, my brain's connected and it looks fine.
Yeah, I assume it's because substring calls it count because it's old before we had standards. Yeah. Nope, it's start index and length.
Well, I think we've got like append char c int count, which repeats character c that many times, which is why I saw count and my brain was like, oh yeah, this obviously means the repetition number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought the same until you informed me otherwise, so you weren't the only one.
Yeah,
we
I just saw it as like, obviously, if it takes a start index and then or an int start and then an int followed by some other int, that this is a length. I didn't even read that it said count. I was just like, it's followed by an int. I know what it means.
Yeah, but I think it's already existing overloads that it takes like string instead of rune. I mean, it's using the same names. I mean,
Yeah.
count, not lengths.
Yeah,
Well,
like public
we-
index of char value int start index int count is an existing
Yes.
one.
Right.
Yeah, when in Rome, if the other overloads already use it.
Yep.
Yeah, which is unfortunate, but I guess we're like what 20 years too late for that one.
Uh-huh.
Just rename them, breaking change. No, just kidding.
Amusingly, the helper method they call that they pass count, the parameter they pass count into is called length in the
I
internal.
saw that. Yeah.
This is one of those cases where I'd kind of be okay with us fixing the property name and telling people just fix it, it's better. But I know that's source breaking. So.
You mean the parameter name? Yeah.
But
Yeah.
in many other contexts, count means length, right? I mean, like
Count
in
means
collection-
length for a non-fixed length collection.
Okay.
So
But here also the string is fixed length.
Right.
So count makes sense.
I think it's fine. It's just there is that ambiguity that Tanner that's where I jump to.
I'm just trying to understand the difference because like I never thought like when I see count it means that the repetition count. I never thought about it like this. I always
well,
see count
simply-
it means like number of things there. I mean it's
Right. Well, length couldn't be like the nth character of that index because it's a length, right? But count could be either. It's just a little more ambiguous, but it's what we have, so it's fine.
yeah, well, like string I think has a constructor which is a char and a int count, which is how many. So you can pass capital A 42 and you get 42 capital A's in a row. So string definitely does have APIs that use count as a repeat count.
Yeah.
But string is split across a bunch of files, and it's not in the one that I'm looking for. You're looking at. I'm just actually seeing what we called that parameter. I assume it's count, but anyway, yeah, like honestly, there's probably 0 people that are calling this and saying COUNT : and a number. Which means renaming these counts everywhere to length would not break anyone, but it is a breaking change that I don't think we can justify other than being like, grr, Christoph and Brian and whoever else was involved in naming things 20 years ago. How dare you?
Maybe it's something that like one STS release we could just like experiment with all the APIs across the BCL and see how many people complain. Then use that to justify to Roslyn they needed to give us an attribute to fix it for compat.
That's an interesting point. Yeah, I forgot there's like a proposal to use like a attribute for like obsolete parameter name or something. Or it's an interesting idea.
I mean, yeah. If we added that, we could rename it. But I think for now, we should go with the win in Rome policy and say that count is the name on the other overloads of this method for the same purpose. So.
Yeah, it's just not worth it to like potentially cause any problems over something so minor.
Did we use length for spans? I mean, like in any overloads in spans use length or it use count?
It's almost always length when referring to like slice, if that's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Pretty sure it's almost always length in that context.
I think so.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah, start length.
Yeah.
and the property on is called length.
Yeah.
Which also makes it less conflicting with the extension APIs like link where it's called count for counting the number of occurrences of a particular thing.
Yeah, but the For
Right.
our collection-y
I guess-
things, it's array head length, and all of the collections avoid using the word length, and they use count and capacity. Because it's
Yeah, I think
length was ambiguous
implies it's
between
like-
the two.
Oh, sorry. I think like just length says it's always contiguous. Like if you're ever using that name, it's just like always contiguous. But count could be either.
Does read-only sequence have a length?
Oh, that's an interesting point.
Yeah,
You
it
might
does.
be right.
Yeah.
All right, there's your counterexample.
But read-only sequence is fixed length. It can't change while you're enumerating it.
Maybe that's and you said that earlier. Maybe that's the bigger thing.
Yeah.
Who knows?
So
Alright.
looking at equals here, I think the justification for having the comparison in equals was that Rune had it, but it looks like Rune has it on the static method. Do we want to align those two or like add any overloads there? Because Rune has a static method with comparison, but its equals does not take
No, it's not
comparison.
static. No, it's
Okay,
it's
maybe I'm looking
instance.
at something wrong.
Where did you look at it?
Is it a new API? Because I'm looking at the API.
Yeah, it's a new API. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I have
Oh, okay.
highlighted what it's
Yeah,
matching,
yeah.
so
Okay.
I don't see any static
Yeah,
equals
actually,
on
it's,
Rune.
originally, yeah, it was proposed as static, but in design review, we said that it should be instance.
Yeah, I was looking at the
Yeah.
proposal, not this.
Okay.
Makes sense.
All right. Yeah, I'll leave out the snark. The snark is only available to people who watch the live stream, or I guess the recording. All right. It's like, but we spent time on it. I should write it down. Okay, we're still on 11. I don't know that we have anybody for this. Support ignoring generic constraints with unsafe accessor 119876. It's weird and doesn't make sense, so Tanner knows how it works.
I'm actually not sure this one should be reviewed without getting sign off from someone from the runtime team saying it is even possible first.
Okay.
It looks like Jeff marked it ready for review, and I think this is probably the shape we'd end up having it because it follows the other shapes. But I think we need David Wrighton or Jan Kotaz or someone else to go and say, yes, this is feasible. Yes, we want to provide it, and then we can review it and get it approved.
We have said in the past that we can approve API shapes if we think it looks good, regardless of like whether anyone wants to implement it. That's kind of a separate discussion.
Right. Like, if this is obviously the right name, then we can just, give it the approved stamp and then let Jan.
Yep.
I mean, if it's not even possible, somebody will go to implement it and then find out that they can't.
My concern is more not that this isn't the right shape, but more that this isn't exactly the right shape.
Okay.
There's nuance with generic constraints and how they exist, and so there may need to be a difference between like synthetic constraints versus actual runtime constraints. For example, unmanaged only exists as a constraint at the C# type system level. It doesn't exist as a constraint at the runtime level. It's just struct there. So I think we want at least a little bit of input, and then if they give the okay, this will be a really fast thing to review and approve.
Fair enough. So you think that, like, David would say, well, this only applies to generic constraints of the form floobity doobity, and then we insert floobity doobity right here.
Potentially, yeah.
Okay.
like we might end up wanting 2 properties here or something, just
Sure.
depending on what the runtime experts say.
Fair enough. Well, in that case, we didn't talk about it.
Yeah.
And
I will mark it suggestion and then tag David and Jan to give input.
Okay.
Will marking it suggestion interfere with?
if you wait until until you see the email with the minutes, then it won't matter. But
yeah, okay,
if you do it right now,
then.
it'll look like we rejected it. So
yeah, I'll just wait then.
Okay, and I assume we don't want to talk about anything from future, which is ARM64, 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 and a change for linked to dictionary, because I don't think we have the people/time for these.
Yeah, I think the ARM ones will probably take a little bit longer just because all the context that has to be explained for them.
Yep.
They are ready for review when we need to.
Okay. These two, I think something's going on in the Prague office this week. They said they won't be available this week or next week. So right now it looks like the ARM64s might float up to the front of the list next week. So I guess just be prepared.
Oh, I will be out next week.
Well, all right.
Yeah.
Well, then I guess we won't talk ARM64 next week. We'll just see what else manages to float into the list. So
yeah, I'll be at a figure skating competition. So
good luck.
thank you.
All right. With that, it seems like we have run out of items to talk about, other than people really being excited about my floobity doobity. And apparently we're now looking forward to where T: allows floobity doobity, so that we can ignore the floobity doobity constraint. So, with that, thanks everyone for joining us, and especially at the end here for making me laugh. And we'll see you presumably next week if we have any issues at our same .NET time on our same .NET channel, and if not next week, some week after that. Until then, I don't know the Hebrew word for see you later, so I'll go with Italian and say ciao.